Hey, Michael.
Morning. How's it going?
Okay. I left the other session when they said started introducing, so I don't know how much longer that part will go before they switch in. We'll find out though pretty soon.
Yeah, and I have one person's gonna stay until they say to switch over, so that will be our sign. So
Okay. Well, they just started the video with giving the information, and so I just don't know how much long it's going to go because we're actually 15 minutes early, so that's good. Some people might come in separately though because they're separate links, so we'll see. Before we get started, so I got what was emailed with the handbook and the attachments, but I did not, and maybe I misunderstood, I did not receive the worksheet, so that's still the information worksheet.
okay, yeah, I'll have to look into it, but we'll make sure that you get it.
I mean, did I misunderstand? Because I thought it had been sent out, or I thought you had said it had been sent out. But
yeah, it should have been, but I'll have to look into it. So
okay, so just keep that in mind as we talk with folks today, because if no one says that they got it, then you know that it likely didn't go out. But if only a few of us didn't get it, then there's something else.
Is this the election meeting?
Yes.
Thank you. I didn't get whatever worksheet he's talking about.
Which
Okay.
Which neighborhood council? Are you Venice?
Venice Neighborhood Council.
Sorry, which one?
Venice Neighborhood.
Venice.
Council.
Okay, I guessed that one. Okay.
That's okay.
Hey, Renee.
Good morning, Glenn. How are you?
I'm pretty well. Pretty well.
Glad to hear it.
So, Jose, I imagine you're, let's see, let me take a look.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, good. Are you going to be joining us? I mean, I know you're doing all the back end stuff. Are you going to be part of the conversation as well, or chiming in when needed? Or
yeah, I'll just chime in when needed. Mostly like handle the tech end.
Yeah, I understood that. It's just that I understand no one else from DONE's going to be here, and since you've got many years, almost a decade of election experience, I thought. Anyway, yeah, feel free to chime in if anything gets to DONE that I can't answer, feel free to chime in.
No problem.
Okay, thanks. And then Michael and Renee. Jose, can you give? I'm sure who's co-host. I guess I'm okay. So I guess we can all share screen, Michael and Renee, myself, if we need to. So okay.
Okay.
So I am theoretically, I can share for the handbook and the timeline, those various attachments. But since I'm moderating, if you are able to do that quicker, that would be fantastic. I think particularly the, we're not going to go through the handbook, but I thought it was just so people know what the front cover of it looked like. But I think definitely the timeline would be good to display when we're going over that. The generic, maybe a generic timeline, or at least even the sample, like Region 5, just as a sample.
Okay. Yeah, Mike will be doing the screen sharing this morning.
Okay.
All right. So do we want to give folks a few more minutes to join before we get started?
Well, I think we'll get started when your person who's in the main session is joining us.
Okay, that would be me.
Oh, you were last to leave, so they all concluded everything?
Uh,
Okay.
Well, we do have one. Well, Jocelyn, I see you're here. So they're done with the main session? Okay. All right. So then you want to go ahead and get started?
Okay. All right. I see it's being recorded. That's great. Thank you, Jose. So yes, we'll go ahead and get started. We have 28 participants, including some of the panelist folks. So my name is Glenn Bailey, and I am moderating this session. I will chime in on things that I can contribute, but primarily this session will be led by the staff from the City Clerk's Neighborhood Council Elections section, because they're the ones who are actually going to be running the election portions. They are not, underline not, handling the outreach part. That is subject of a different networking session and is primarily the responsibility of the neighborhood councils themselves and the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. However, as you heard earlier in the session, just experience for year after year after year of the elections, the most successful elections are those that have lots of candidates, lots of contested seats. They historically bring in the most voters, notwithstanding all the outreach efforts of the neighborhood council, which can bring in a significant number of voters, but just the highest percentages based on robust, with lots of candidates. All their collective effort does that. So I'll start with that. I do want to, because I probably will repeat this at the end, but I'll go ahead and do it at the beginning. That there's two. First of all, let me just say that I served as an independent election administrator when the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment was overseeing the elections. So I oversaw 9 neighborhood councils. And then after that, I was election coordinator and oversaw the first 4 regions of 34 neighborhood councils before we transitioned to the joint Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, City Clerk, and now fully to City Clerk in terms of running elections. But I have also been a poll manager for neighborhood council elections throughout the city over the years, and have also been involved with joint regional efforts. And that's one thing I just wanted to throw out there before we get started, and that is the 12 regions in the city you'll hear about in a few minutes. There's anywhere from 6 to 9 neighborhood councils. And one of the models that's been successful in the past is when those neighborhood councils all work together, they have the same election day and all work together in the efforts, joint outreach efforts and sharing ideas. It's virtual, obviously, this time. But that is something that has been helpful for many of the regions. I just want to throw that out there because it's sort of beyond the purview of the city clerk. It's probably beyond what DONE has been focused on, and it's really going to be up to the neighborhood councils for that part of it. The other thing I just wanted to remind those neighborhood councils that have not yet created an ad hoc elections committee, if you don't have a standing one, to please, your very next board meeting, agendize creating an ad hoc elections committee, get that populated with board members and stakeholders, get your chair or co-chair set up. So there's a point of contact with both the city clerk as well as DONE. Those are 2 things that neighborhood councils specifically can do on a individual council level as well as a regional level. That would be very helpful in making this effort even more successful. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the leads from the city clerk, who will be handling the nuts and bolts of the election. So Michael Lektorich and Renee McDade are going to be the team leaders, but we've got a number of their colleagues here and they can introduce them. And we've got several topics that we will be going over, and we will be taking your questions. And there's also some of these, there's a review and comment period. And so we won't necessarily be doing the comments here during this meeting because there's a a point that you can do direct comment on those after you've had a chance to review the document. So Michael, you want to go ahead and get started on that? Thank you. Oh, sorry, Michael, before you get started, I acknowledge Jose Galdamez is handling all of our logistics here this session, Zoom, and he'll be watching for raised hands and comments and chat. And because he has worked a number of the probably all the elections in the last decade since he's been involved, he may chime in as necessary as a resource person from Department Neighborhood Department. So thank you, Jose. Yes, Michael, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. So good morning, everyone. My name is Renee McDade, and I am the election administrator for the Office of the City Clerk, Election Division. Thank you for joining us this morning for the all vote by mail elections breakout session. Our hope is by the time you leave this session, you will have a better understanding of how the all vote by mail elections will work and have questions to some of the answers you may have. During the opening session, our city clerk, Holly Walcott, gave a brief overview of how we arrived at implementing all vote by mail elections for 2021, what the candidate filing and voting processes will look like, and information on our report back to the Health, Education, Neighborhoods, Parks, Arts, and River Committee. So during this breakout session, we'll briefly cover some election information for those of you that may have missed Holly's presentation, and then jump right into receiving your feedback and ideas or answering any questions that you have. But before we begin, I'd like for you to meet the election administrators that will support and guide you through this election cycle. So let's begin with Jocelyn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Alvarado, and I am an election administrator for the City Clerk. I look forward with working with all of you. And I'll pass it on to Lene Basulto. Lene, you're on mute.
Hello, I'm Lene Basulto, and I'm also an election administrator with the City Clerk Election Division. And I look forward to working with my neighborhood councils this coming election season. And I'm going to pass it on to Michael.
Morning, everybody. I'm with the City Clerk's office. I'm an election administrator. I look forward to working with you guys for this election. I'll get back to you with some details in a little bit, but I'll pass it on to Nathan.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nathan Singh, and I'm also an election administrator for the City Clerk. I look forward to working with all of you guys, and now I'll pass it on to Robertina.
Morning, everyone. My name is Robertino Salgado. I'm with the Office of the City Clerk. I'm serving as an election administrator. I look forward to working with all the NCs. So thank you.
Thank you to the election administrators for introducing yourselves. If you would like to know the election administrator that will be assisting you during the election cycle, maybe during your question or your feedback, you can ask who your election administrator is, and we'll be happy to provide you with that information. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Mike, where he'll give you more election information. Take it away, Mike.
All right. I know a lot of you have probably heard this information earlier today, but I just want to kind of do a brief overview of how the election model will look and give you a few little details. So due to the public health and safety concerns as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the City Clerk is implementing an all vote by mail voting model for 2021. Yesterday, each neighborhood council board member was emailed a draft of the 2021 election handbook and election information worksheet. The draft 2021 election handbook outlines the election process, including the candidate filing process, candidate guidelines, vote by mail procedure, and tally information. The election handbook also includes a breakdown of the election timeline by region. The neighborhood council members have until Friday, October 2nd to provide feedback and suggestions. The election information worksheet allows neighborhood councils to provide preferred ballot drop box hours and locations, contact information for the election chair, and translation preferences. The election information worksheet requires an official Action by the Neighborhood Council Board. Our office is requesting the board approved election information worksheet is turned in no later than Friday, November 13th. So now we'll skip to candidate filing. The candidate filing period is going to be extended from 30 days to 45 days. Candidates can complete and submit an application for candidacy using the candidate filing portal online or via a paper application. The new candidate filing portal will include simple and clear terminology, improved screen images, easier document uploading, application progress and status updates, and a step-by-step progress display. Our office will prepare materials including instructional video to assist stakeholders with navigating the candidate filing process. The portal will be accessible 24/7 during the application period and accessible on all devices with internet access. As in previous elections, while our office may be closed to the public, staff will be available office hours to assist stakeholders over the phone and through email. Now for vote by mail, each region will have a separate election day, but all election days have been moved to Tuesdays to accommodate mailing. This VBM, we always say VBM, but I know that's only us. The vote by mail model includes an online portal that will be accessible to stakeholders 24/7 during the application period. That's 60 days prior to election day. Paper applications will also be available. Once applications and any required documentation have been reviewed and approved, ballots will be mailed out starting 29 days before election day. The last day to request a ballot is 7 days prior to the election. We're working to ensure those without a physical mailing address or experiencing homelessness have access to participate in neighborhood council elections. Ballots must be postmarked by election day and received no later than 3 days thereafter to be included in the tally. On election day, we will have ballot boxes available for voters to drop off their ballots. The tally will be live streamed. Lastly, one other change for this election cycle is an independent grievance panel will be the deciding body for election day challenges. The panel makeup will consist of 2 neighborhood council stakeholders and 1 city clerk representative. Our office will provide panelists with guidelines to use when reviewing challenges. The neighborhood council team looks forward to working with you for this election cycle. What I can do just very briefly is I'm just going to screen share so you guys know some of the documents that we're talking about, and we can dive deeper as questions arise. So can everyone see this okay? So this is the election information worksheet. This is again where the Dropbox hours and locations can be recommended by each neighborhood council. And it does require, as you can see here, neighborhood council board approval. We also have emailed out the 2021 Neighborhood Council Election Handbook.
Michael, on the election information worksheet, if that was was that sent to all board members?
It was sent to all board members, and what we can do is we can, if you did not receive it, just put your name in the chat, and we'll look into making sure that your board did receive it. So
okay, and be sure to put the name of your neighborhood council in as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to.
No, perfect. There's also a regional schedule. Like there's all kinds of attachments, but the last one I kind of want to just show is the election timeline. So the first page shows each region and the election date, and then as you scroll through, a very detailed timeline. We'll make easier ones available on our website that's going to be easier to read for most stakeholders, but we know as neighborhood council board members, you probably want to know all the kind of nuts and bolts of the election process. So you can see that here. So like I said, we can pull these up as questions come in, but just want to provide that. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Michael, before we do that, can you just describe about the assignment of the election administrators? for each of the regions, how that's, just give everyone what to expect. They should have already received an email from their respective person, but just confirm that, please, with everyone.
Yeah, so all board members should have received at least one email from their election administrator. Election administrators, we kind of have them broken down. So in each region, they're spread out. So we can, if you don't know who your election administrator is, just make sure to, when you raise your hand, you can mention that. We'll make sure to let you know who that is.
Okay, so if you have questions, do use the raise hand feature under participants. And if you're on the phone, hit *9, and we'll start in the order in which they've been submitted. Ira's first.
Hi, Ira Kozlow, Venice Neighborhood Council. I would like to know who our election administrator is. And the other question I had is, we used to get the stipulation sheet, and there are a lot of things to pick and mull over. Here, there's actually basically one for the Dropbox location and hours. Why is it only one day? I mean, I know there's a certain security concern, but to have one day to drop things off in the Dropbox seems very limited. I think it should be more, especially with the current attempts to mess up the post office, which will probably still be in effect, when our election is. So that's just the comment, because it's a very simple sheet now. That's all.
Yes, to answer your question, Ira, so currently with the budget that we have allocated, we are only able to have one Dropbox in your area on election day. In that report back to HENPAR, we are trying to secure additional funds so that we can make the Dropbox boxes available for longer than election day, and even perhaps at multiple locations, but that's all going to depend upon what happens after we report back to HENPAR. But that is something we've heard over the last few regional sessions, and even in the bonk meetings, and at the alliances. So we know that is a great concern for the neighborhood councils, and we are working hard to see what we can do about that.
Okay, thanks. Who's our election administrator?
That's for now. It's me. So Michael Lectrich. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I assume it's like Michael Leftovich at
lacity.org.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So he gets the big prize, right? At least historically. Before we go to the next question, just regarding the Dropbox issue, it was at a previous election outreach meeting, there was discussion about if there's some neighborhood councils that have shared facilities, or they might have an adjacent facility, like a city facility, like a library or something like that, that might make sense. Do you have an answer on that? I guess, Renee, as far as, is that something, if two neighborhood councils wanted to work together, because you did say the envelopes don't have to be in the same same Dropbox as the neighborhood council, since they're individually identified. Do you have any update on that?
Yeah, that is correct. So that is something we are looking into, where if you happen to be closer to a location that has been identified as the Dropbox for one NC, but you're closer to that location or can get to that location easier, you would be able to drop your ballot into that box, even if it's not assigned to your neighborhood council. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Dan Bryn, West Hills Neighborhood Council is next.
There you go. Can you hear me now? All right. Thanks. So Holly Wolcott earlier today said that neighborhood councils now have the option to designate at least one, using her words, youth seat. So for a board member under the age of 18. Did I hear that correctly? First of all, so there can be more than one.
So what she's referring to is the neighborhood council reform system. There's been several reforms in that. And so one of them was to increase the minimum voting age for all NCs to the age of 16. And then what that would also do is allow NCs to only have one youth seat. And so I know that there are some councils that have 2 elected youth seats where that would affect the elections, and I believe Dunn is working with them. But again, she was speaking about that in relations to that new minimum voting age ordinance that went through, I believe, earlier this month, the council approved. It was that along with the community interest stakeholder definition ordinance. So that's what she's referring to.
So, okay, I just want to clarify that even though the city council ordinance states 1, that we could have more than 1.
From my understanding, that ordinance would limit you to only 1. That is my understanding. But I would say you would probably want to speak to your NEA to make sure you have clarification on that.
Okay, it is confusing. And a follow-up question is, at what point do we have to designate this youth seat? Can it be, what if we don't know if there are going to be any youth candidates, or there are going to be more than one youth candidate who wins election? Can we, after the election, by simple board vote, say, okay, well, we have two youth candidates who won election, that we could, at that point, designate the seats? I mean, what kind of flexibility do we have, or are we put into a straitjacket?
So basically, what you would have had, the board would have had to approve, the board would have had to have submitted a board structure change through Dunn before July 1, requesting to add a board seat, a youth board seat. So that would have had to have taken place before this past July. So at this point, if you wanted to do that, you would have to wait until next year.
That's well, we didn't even have the ordinance. How could we possibly work retroactively? This is kind of absurd.
Well, I know that the ordinance, a lot of the neighborhood councils have been talking about the ordinances. I think Dunn will have to speak more about the NEAs, what information that they were giving at the board meetings that I'm not sure of. I know those ordinances have been circulating for at least last year. So I'm not sure if you weren't aware of that. I just know that
we were. Well, but we didn't know, but we're actively lobbying against the ordinance. And so it would be, I mean, we had no ability to predict the future about what would happen. So what we're saying, they're saying is that we're prohibited from having youth candidates as anybody on our neighborhood council board under the age of 18, just by simple fiat. And if the idea is to have a purpose, the central purpose of neighborhood councils is to increasing citizen involvement in the city, and this is a denial of that imperative.
And Dan, so here's the thing: we're here to focus on the 2021 election. If you already had a youth seat in your bylaws, it may have been modified by the new age, the 14 to 17 age. If you did not already have a youth seat and you opt to add one, yes, you can do that. But I think you would have, as Renee said, it had to be done before the bylaws deadline. As far as impacts of this new ordinance, I've been told by Dunn higher levels that on a case-by-case basis, there may be an opportunity for a neighborhood council to make adjustments if you were impacted by this ordinance in a I'll say adverse impact, but I'll give you an example. Reseda Neighborhood Council had multiple youth seats. When they saw that this was happening, that they could only have one youth seat per city council vote, they were able to change one of their youth seats to a young adult seat. So that was age 18 to, I think, 20. So it wasn't the same as high school, but some high school students are still are 18. So they were able to pivot a little bit, and it was on a case-by-case basis. They were able to get that approved by DONE, or it had to go to the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners. But I'd be happy to have a conversation with you offline on that, but it may have to be something that they're going to do on a case-by-case basis, simply because the deadline to get the bylaws to city clerk was July 1st. And unfortunately, this change was finalized by city council after then.
Hey Glenn, this is Jose from the Department of Labor Department. So in regards to the council file motion, I entered it into the chat. I included the link also to the ordinance regarding the neighborhood council age requirement and optional board youth board seat ordinance that was recently approved. So for those that would like to take a look, you can click on the link there to look at it. Again, the council file motion comes from the Neighborhood Council Systems Reform, which was from 2018, and it's been ongoing as the department's providing notifications on this in our monthly profiles, and also some of the NEAs will make updates on regarding council file motions regarding the youth seat, and for neighborhood councils to weigh in on that matter. Again, in regards to what the department is looking into, where the department is reviewing the bylaws to see which neighborhood councils are being effective, and looking at the minimum voting age, what neighborhood council board youth seats are being affected, and we're looking into providing the possible remedy and solutions for those soon.
Hi, Glenn. Steve Randall, West Hills Neighborhood Council.
Hold on. Let me see if there's any hand. Go ahead. I just want to make sure there's no hands raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't see a hand raise option.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry for breaking in.
Yeah, it's below the panelists. Below the list of panelists, you should see a raised hand. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. I co-chair the elections committee on the West Hills Neighborhood Council. So my question is, if a neighborhood council does not have a designated youth seat, what is the youngest age that we can seat somebody in the regular election, in a regular seat?
18.
18.
18? That's the youngest.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a change, because we have had people as young as 16. So without the new designated youth seat, we can no longer have anybody under the age of 18. Ooh,
Correct.
not
Sorry.
good.
Not good.
Not good. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this was a multi-year process. It started at the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, and then it found its way to Councilmember Rue and the committee. And we're not in total charge, so we have to kind of do it the best we can. But I would say do work with your NEA to see what your options are. But again, this is primarily for those neighborhood councils that already had something in their bylaws that got now overridden by the city council action, and that now the bylaws have to be changed, without the board's affirmative moving that forward. And I'm just reporting what was stated to me. Now, if you have, that's if it's regarding an elected. There's many neighborhood councils that have appointed youth seats, and they can still proceed to do the appointment of their youth member as they have in the past. I see Ira's hand is up. Ira.
Yeah, hi. Ira Kozlov, Venice Neighborhood Council. We've had in our bylaws forever that our minimum voting age is 16. We've actively pursued getting youth members. We were successful 10 years ago. We had a 16-year-old from Venice High School who was elected to our board. He was great. The unfortunate thing was he had to go off to college, so we lost him after that. But he's come back 10 years later. He's Mike Bonnen's bridge housing deputy. So it was an individual who really got into it. So it wasn't 18, and it's not 18 now for us because of our bylaws. The other thing, this is a quick comment. I was a teacher at a 6th grade through 12th grade school, licensed Los Angeles Center for Rich Studies, and 14 is a ridiculous age to have as the minimum age. 16 is a good one, and I don't know, but it's going to be very difficult to get these kids on your board, whatever the age is. As I said, we've had it on our books forever. We've had one in the 10 years ago. That's it. Who even ran and he won. But okay, sorry, that's it.
Well, and there is an opportunity for more youth involvement now that all neighborhood councils are moved down to the 16-year voting age for all voters. Many neighborhood councils had that. I'd say half of the neighborhood councils already had a voting age of less than 18 before it was changed to 16 for everyone. So that would be a change for probably half the neighborhood councils to now have 16-year-olds voting. So that's the first step, I think, in engaging younger people is having them vote. Okay, there is a hand raised. Sorry, just a second. Oh, Holly. Holly, yeah, you could.
Yeah, I got it now. My name's Holly Tilson. I'm from the Mar Vista Community Council. We don't have a youth seat and have, since I've been on since 2016, and well, I guess even before that, have always voted not to have a youth seat. But now it sounds like anybody 16 and older, even though we probably wouldn't ratify that when it comes around. I have a concern. I've worked with the school district on writing policies. I mean, these are minors. Who's responsible for them? They're kind of under the umbrella of the neighborhood council. So is this going to lead to the city having to do background checks and fingerprinting all of the board members? I mean, this whole thing makes me uncomfortable.
Well, the 16-year-olds for voting only, the one youth seat is basically this same option that neighborhood councils have. It just, if your neighborhood council had more than one youth seat, it does affect you. And I've explained what Reseda opted to do. There's no requirement to have a youth seat. It's only, if you do, it has to be 14 to 17 years of age. Some of the neighborhood councils that had youth seats before this were not as young as 14. They were like 16, 17. So, and it's one of that age. So that's the change. So I do have a list here, and I just want to make sure that we can vet out the issue of voter registration in advance of the election day is going to be necessary in order for folks to vote by mail. And I wanted to just drill down a little bit about those options for getting the paper forms that were mentioned, especially for the election regions that are opening first. Region 5 is going to open first, then 6, then 7, then 8, and then back down to 1. Having those voter registration forms available for those folks who may not have easy internet access, or if you were going to do a hard copy mailing, or even an electronic mailing, those can be distributed out to folks. I do think probably city clerk would prefer that voters do it online through their portal once that opens up. But Michael, could you just comment a little bit about those two options and what people could expect, and also maybe comment, we haven't talked, there's been no conversation about neighborhood councils that are documentation versus self-affirmation in terms of how that would work. Maybe you can comment on that too.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, there's going to be the two options for if someone wants to register for a vote by mail ballot in neighborhood council elections, that would be on the portal, and that will open 60 days prior to election day. Paper applications, it looks like we're going to try to extend that to 90 days, maybe. The paper application will be available on our website. We are also looking to partner with different programs to have paper applications available at those locations for people who don't have easy access to the internet or have some technical difficulties. So we also are going with we're sticking to the bylaws. So if a NC is self-affirmation, they simply need to fill out the application, and then there's an agreement that they are self-affirming that, you know, the information they're providing is true. If it's documentation, they would have to provide that documentation through our office, to our office somehow. There's through the portal. So very similar to candidate filing, they can fill out their application and they'll be taken to a page where they can simply upload pictures of the documentation. If they prefer to email us the documentation, we can do it that way as well. If it's paper application, they can attach it to the paper application. So we will have the application available on our website. Again, we're saying about 90 days, but it will be available on our website once that starts.
Okay, and then just so it's going to be online 60 days. If you have it prior to that, it'll be there in the city clerk's office, and up to 7 days prior to the election to submit it. That's cutting it a little bit close for the city clerk to turn around and then get the ballot mailed to the voter, and then the voter needing to get it postmarked by the election day or dropped off in one of the drop boxes.
Yes.
So did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did. That covers it.
Okay. And then I just want to bring everyone into the chat is that the city clerk election administrators assignments for each of the neighborhood councils is posted in the chat. So take a look at the chat. I don't know if that's still in process, but I see quite a few have been listed there so far. Let whoever's, as if that's Robertino, maybe or go ahead and just let us know when you finish putting in all 99 neighborhood councils.
Sounds good, Glenn.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm working on that right now.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, the next hands up is from Kamesh from Chatsworth Neighborhood Council.
Yes, hi there. This is for the DONE people, and we've been doing our elections by way of what's called the selection process, and we've been very successful last so many years. And this time we want to do the same thing as well, but probably we're going to do by voting. And we want to know what's your thinking on this.
What you're thinking on this, DONE people, and what is your thing on this? What the fuck does it mean? What's your thing on this?
Hi,
He's cutting out.
yeah, hi, this is Jose from the Department of Department. In regards to the selections, department is looking in updating the selection stipulation worksheets for those neighborhood councils that hold selections, just provide the options and how to, in ways that they should consider in holding their selections in response to the COVID pandemic. And make sure to maintain like social distancing solutions to those. So at this time, it's still being under review and to put those solutions forward for those neighborhood councils.
Any idea the time frame by when we'll be completing those decisions?
I don't have a time frame set yet, but I can work with you, Kamesh, especially with the Chatsworth Neighborhood Council, and also there's a couple other neighborhood councils that are scheduled to have selections for 2021 as well.
I see. So it's possible to have a selection by a mail or also in person as well?
Regarding in person, I don't know about that, but
Okay.
Vote by mail is one of the considerations, and also I think one of the other ideas was like the virtual town hall.
And you brought in, I'm sorry, you brought in the social distancing. Where is the social distancing coming in the vote by mail process?
It's just factors, just like how the city clerk is taking the precautions and making sure, that voters can do vote by mail instead of coming into a polling place and taking, mitigating some of the risk of spreading the COVID. Especially since now we still don't know what the situation would be from months from now. So as again, in order to consider those factors, the department is still updating the selection stipulation worksheet into consideration for those neighborhood councils.
So in other words, to summarize your explanation, that we can do our vote by mail, but selection by vote by mail ourselves.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's one of the factors. If not, trying to, again, I'm just waiting to see what solutions or options can be available, especially for the selections.
All right. Thank you, Jose.
Okay, thank you. We've had a couple of questions in chat, and then we have a couple of raised hands, but I do want to answer one of the questions. What's the difference between a selection and election? I'll take a first stab at this, and others can chime in. Basically, the city charter indicates that neighborhood councils may choose their boards by either election, selection. I think you're all familiar with elections. Those are run by city clerk, the traditional ballot, voters, stakeholders, et cetera model. The selection is an option that neighborhood councils can opt in for if they wish, where they can either do a town hall, which is now in COVID-19 times probably not going to be possible for a while, but they do a town hall where basically all the stakeholders show up in one evening, and they register, and then they hear from the candidates, and then they vote, and it's all done that evening in person at one physical location. Another option for a selection would be to operate it similar to the election with ballots at a polling place. The difference is, however, is that the ballots are not secret, that a person either signs the ballot or they're numbered. There's some way to it's not a secret ballot like in an election. And so and the difference as far as selection, a neighborhood council may have differing reasons to do that. In the case of Chatsworth, it's because they have 2-year staggered terms. That means half their board is up every year. That means they have to do some sort of a process every single year, and the city clerk was only doing elections every 2 years. So for a neighborhood council that has a need to fill vacants, fill half their board every year, then a selection affords them the opportunity to do that. They may wish to the town hall option for some, they may choose to do it that way. And then also is in terms of the date, because the dates are set by regions, in odd numbered years now by the city clerk. There's some neighborhood councils, they prefer to have their seats filled in a different schedule than the preset schedule in the spring of odd number years. Does anyone from city clerk or DONE want to chime in additional thoughts on that?
Hey Glenn, yeah, this is Jose. Yeah, that was a good, pretty much dead on. The summary as far as from the elections to elections. Again, with elections, yes, they're private ballot, while with elections they're open, meaning that the way that the voter voted, no, the ballot would be traced back to that voter, and it's pre-arrayable. People can look into those records and see how everyone voted. The idea of it was, same as, doing the town hall on a specific day, time, and having everyone come in. Usually they'll do that by show of hands after hearing each of the candidates, and everybody would get counted at that moment, and see who would get selected to each of those the board seats that the candidates ran for.
Okay, thanks. There's also a question in chat that I think probably could be expanded by either Renee or Michael. It says, this is from Jackie, once a person is registered, how is their qualification verified? By mail, by online, the process to qualify by area? So if one of you might want to expand on that, please.
Sure. So each neighborhood council has separate bylaws that dictate the verification, and so self-affirmation or documentation, and requirements to vote for certain seats. So we're still honoring that. We'll do it any way we can. So if we get it through email, through mail, through the online portal, if it's even a picture taken with your cell phone, we'll work with whatever to help make sure that that stakeholder is verified, meets the requirements of that neighborhood council, and gets their ballot.
So I think I may be reading more into this than they put in, but once they're verified, yes, they'll get the ballot. But in the meantime, if they did it online or say by email, do you respond to them saying you're good to go? You will get a ballot 29 days before the election day. Do they hear back?
So that one of the really good kind of things that we want to highlight with the online portal that I think will be handy for anyone who submits it, they will have status updates on their application. So they'll be able to see, that it was successfully submitted, that it was reviewed. They'll be able to see when their ballot is mailed out, when it's received. So that's the best way. They can always, like if it's a paper application, they can definitely call in. We will have it on file so we can see the status of their application. But the best, the highlight of filling it out online is you're able to see it live, because as soon as we mail that out, this portal will be saying, your ballot was mailed out on this day. Yeah. So that's,
okay, and I think that answers one of the questions in chat is how will ballots be distributed to voters? It's by mail.
yes.
Okay. Okay, we have a hand raised from Lauren. Go ahead, Lauren. You should be unmuted.
Great, thank you. So what are the measures in place to allow persons with disabilities to participate, both as potential candidates and in getting their ballots? I haven't heard anything about ADA accommodations or specifications. If you could discuss.
Yes, so what we're doing is for our candidates and voters that may need special assistance, one of the things that we do offer is if there's an issue with filling out that application online, someone would be able to call our office and we would be able to enter that information for them. So that's one of the things that we provide for those who may have who may need special assistance. We do also have multilingual, bilingual, and multilingual telephone operators. And so we will be able to provide language assistance as well. And we do also translate our documents.
So this is the reason I asked this is because we want to make this part of our outreach piece. So, for example, for someone who is seeing impaired, I could see that working. But for someone who maybe has a second disability, is hard of hearing, there seems to me like this broad avenue, right, of people who could be impacted. And calling your office would be important, but would they be, for example, asking for the regional person to call in and help, or would anybody with that number? And could we get that information like in a FAQ that we could actually attach as part of our election outreach?
Yes, that would be something that we can provide for you. And yes, anyone that answers our main number, if that individual is not able to assist them themselves, then they would be able to get someone on the line, one of our front counter operators that would be able to do that. And so maybe what we can do is have a conversation with you offline to find out exactly what type of information that you're looking for, which audience that you're trying to support and reach out to. And even if we need to contact the Department on Disability, we do have a representative there by the name of Rosemary that do assist us with our ADA accessibility of our forms and our processes. And if we have to enlist her help to support maybe some of the folks that you're trying to outreach to, I'm sure that's something that we can do. So if you want to put your information in the chat, you can, and then we'll be more than happy to follow up with you.
Fantastic. Appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Along those lines, Renee, he mentioned about the frequently asked questions. I know in 2019 you had a trifold brochure that was available for distribution, and because we're now in a virtual world, will you be producing something that would be more designed for electronic dissemination that would accomplish the same purpose as your trifold brochure?
Yes, we're actually in the process of updating that brochure as we speak, and so it will be available on our website again in 2021.
Before 2021, right?
Well, for the 2021 elections, yes.
Okay. I mean, it was a good informational piece, and that for neighborhood councils to utilize. So,
right.
Okay, so we'll hope that we get that word out to all the councils as soon as it's available. All right, yes. I think there was. Sorry, I'm still. Okay, I'm not seeing any other raised hands. Please do raise your hand or hit star now if you're on the phone. If you have any other questions. Let me just check our issues.
Glenn, I see the hand raised by Kathy.
Okay. All right, let's see. Thank you. Yes, Kathy, you should be able to, you should be unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thanks for all the information, but we got the handbook, but it's a draft and it says subject to change. So it doesn't kind of make sense for us to be working with something that we're looking at and applying it, and it may change. So when will that be finalized?
Well, we'll definitely have the election handbook finalized before the beginning of candidate filing. And so that's there just as a disclaimer. So of course, we are giving the NCs the opportunity to review that handbook. And so depending upon your feedback, we may add something there, or we may make a change. And so we anticipate that those changes will be small. After the NC's review, we have to also submit that to City Attorney's Office for their review. And so we don't anticipate that there will be a lot of changes. We are hoping that there'll be, very small and minimal, but I think the basis of the process is there in the handbook. And once we do finalize that, we will resend that handbook out to all the boards.
Thanks, Renee. And one more quick question.
Yes.
The way that the election was run 2 years ago with all of the candidates being on the website and all of the information being in that particular website, is that going to be the same?
Yes, it will be.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Kathy, I want to follow up on the question on the handbook, and that is in 2018, leading up to the 2019 election, city clerk did similarly disseminated the draft version of the handbook, asked for input, and they were very accommodating and they gave full consideration to the comments by neighborhood councils. And there were a number of changes made. I'm not saying there were fundamental changes that were made, because I think back then we did ask that the candidate filing be extended to 45 days as well. That did happen this year. But I do know from city clerk that they seriously considered and did make a number of changes. So I would say to you and to all the folks on this call is do know that your time and effort in going through that draft and making comments will be seriously considered. And if it's an improvement, may be incorporated in that draft, I would urge folks to take advantage of this opportunity. We had to, I'm not sure what the right words are, but we strongly urge that happened 2 years ago, and we appreciate that that's continuing. I hope that'll be an ongoing effort to accommodate neighborhood councils. And depending on your response during this first week, I mean, it may be we may want to push for another week's extension on that. But do take advantage of this first week, this 1 week that we've been given to do that. So thank you. Okay, we have a raised hand from Max. Max, you should be unmuted.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for putting this together for us. My name is Max. I'm the Vice President of the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. I was wondering, there's a couple of things that are really complicating this besides all of the age differences. I mean, the fact that our budgets were cut about $10,000. I know ours was cut over $10,000. And the fact that on top of that, we're going to this all-mail system. Is DONE or the city clerk's office or any other city agency is going to be working to help us with the education campaign that's going to need to be a part of this? Because it's not just, hey, come out and vote. We're the neighborhood council system. Most of you don't know what the neighborhood councils are in the first place. Well, on top of that, the way you vote is different this year. It's different than the way you're going to vote in 2 years. God willing, this pandemic ends in 2 years. So I was just wondering that. And then as part of that, I know in the past there's been ways for the city to help subsidize some outreach costs, like bus bench advertisements. I know there was a way for us to request those in the past. Is that still a thing? And then if so, is there like a way we can consolidate all of those subsidies if they still exist?
So go ahead.
So DONE will be the lead department on outreach and education, but what I will say for the city clerk's office is that we do have a small outreach team, and what they are responsible for doing is putting together videos that show how to fill out an online candidate application. We did that back in 2019. We will do that for the 2019 elections. We'll do that again for 2021. I suspect we'll also create videos and PSAs for the vote by mail online portal as well to submit an application and get an NC ballot, just to help folks through that process that do utilize the online portal. We also have social media platforms, and we do release videos and PSAs and flyers and different things to get the word out. And so that is something that the city clerk's office do. And I'll let Jose speak to DONE's outreach efforts.
Thank you, Renee.
While Jose's getting on, just know one of the other networking sessions happening simultaneously with this is outreach. And so hopefully you have a colleague from each of your respective neighborhood councils in on that session. But if not, it is being recorded. It will be, the link for the recording will be posted on the Congress website, nccongressla.com, and you can view that outreach workshop. But that is even though city clerk does do some outreach, their primary charge is the actual running of the elections, the candidates, the voters, The DONE will do the outreach, and if you were on the main session, Anne Marie Holman, who's the public information officer, did announce several upcoming outreach sessions during October. So we can, which I'm sure you'll get more information on either as a result of attending this Congress or just through the normal course of communication from DONE to you as a neighborhood council board member. But so just want to interject that. Jose, want to add?
Yeah, and hi, this is Jose. So in regards to the outreach, yes, the department is, working in, again, in creating awareness, promoting out for neighborhood council elections, informing voters regarding, the process and how they can vote, and assisting neighborhood councils by, providing templates, outreach materials that neighborhood councils can use as well in order to promote their neighborhood council elections as well. So the department will be assisting on that, and there's going to be further details regarding neighborhood councils outreach for elections, and just ongoing outreach with Emery's session.
Okay, thanks, Jose. I was looking for the details of that, but it didn't have the time, so I just won't say anything. But just know it's out there. Watch for that. I do know that the first one is the continuation on the session that they only got partway through due to technical difficulties, and that's happening next this coming week on let's see, I think it's on Wednesday, I think at 5. The video aspects of that, so that's the one that's coming up first. The other are in October. I do, for those that came in after we started this session, I just wanted to do a reminder of 2 things that I mentioned for your neighborhood council. Sorry for the repeat for those who were in earlier. Each neighborhood council, if you haven't already, please agendize and create a ad hoc election committee if you don't have a standing election committee, and get your chair and co-chair and members named as soon as possible. And then secondly, within the 12 regions that make up the city, that include all 99 neighborhood councils, reach out to your other neighborhood councils within your region. You all have a common election date, and reach out to them and just coordinate, see if there's any coordinated efforts that you might want to undertake that might benefit all, multiple neighborhood councils. Just as an example, before COVID-19, some of the regions had events where it was like a candidate recruitment event, a get out the vote event. Some neighborhood councils have banded together and put money in for a full page ad in the newspaper, which they were able to afford because each neighborhood council contributed a portion of it, that they would have been cost prohibitive for a single neighborhood council. And I know many years ago, there was a postcard that was put together and distributed amongst neighborhood councils. So any number of creative things that you can do, perhaps as a region, that could help out and amplify what you do for your individual neighborhood council. So those were the 2 things I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. And I do see hand raised from Patricia. You should be unmuted.
Yeah, hi, Glenn. So you partially answered my question, but I'm Patricia Carroll, Treasurer of the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. So in terms of budgeting for the election, because this is such an unusual election, what things do we need to take in consideration? I obviously advertising, but what would we need to do versus what outreach and DONE is doing? And what should we consider in terms of putting aside for our election financially?
Jose, do you want to take that? Or do you want me to start?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the question completely.
Basically, what does the neighborhood council need to do, and how much money should they set aside to do it? Any input on that?
What are the responsibilities financially? Because it is unusual, and what DONE is taking over versus what we actually need to consider.
Again, in regards to outreach, again, we always encourage neighborhood councils to put, to have a budget set aside for their ongoing outreach. In regards to elections, every neighborhood council varies, and what strategies they use, what works for them best, if it's mailers, if it's flyers, if it's social media, advertisement. It's completely different, so I can't give like exact numbers on that matter.
Is DONE covering mailing costs, or how is that working?
As far as mailing costs, I'm sorry. As far as mailing costs, what do you mean by for mailing costs?
To sending mailers to stakeholders, for example.
Jose, I can help with some of that if you like.
Yes, sure. Please.
Okay, great. So good, still morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to, bouncing around, so I apologize if I only got part of the question. But as it relates to the general questions people are asking associated with outreach for the election, what I would encourage you to do is to take a look at the report that we're filing for the HEMPAR meeting of October 8th. In that report, and that's Council File 0963, 20-0963. And in that report, we are detailing what might be possible in terms of outreach support for the neighborhood council elections in 2021. Essentially, we submitted in our proposed budget a request for funding in order to provide pretty robust and comprehensive support with you in partnership with each neighborhood council. All of that changed when the first budget cuts came in, secondarily when the pandemic came in. So all of that funding that we had requested to support your work, which was integrated, it was specific, it was regional, it was strategic, and it was multidimensional using different platforms, was not funded. Subsequently, the report that we're preparing or have prepared in our will be and which will be reviewed by the HEMPAR committee, responds to the question they asked, which is what resources would it take to do something? So we've specified what that would look like. We invested in the development of a 2021 election marketing strategy. So we now have a strategic plan that is focused around partnerships, media partnerships, community-based partnerships, working with all of you to be able to make those as localized as possible. To the specific question about mailers, that is one item that we did not include in the request for funding support, primarily because it's cost prohibitive. We calculated that for, on average, it would cost about $500,000 to equitably have funding available to support mailers for all of the neighborhood councils. So given the pandemic, given the fiscal constraints that we have been instructed to embrace, which are pretty severe, they're pretty severe. We didn't even consider that in the options. So do stay on tune for that report, and so that you can kind of take a look at the specific recommendations. We want you to weigh in. We want you to offer your thoughts about what we're proposing. We've been sharing this council file with you all through the our newsletters, monthly profiles for about a month or so. So we hope to hear from you in that process.
Thank you, Raquel. Patricia, I can just add a couple of things. In the early days of the neighborhood council formations, and the department at that time, when there was a lot more funding available, did assist by sending out mailers, saturation mailers, but that was back in 2002, 2004. So those days are long gone. And so for an actual hard copy mailer, that would be something your neighborhood council would decide on what the format would be in terms of folded versus postcard. And I can tell you that many neighborhood councils will put in like $5,000 in their budget. This year, there was an election category. They'll put in 5,000, sometimes more, for doing those sorts of things. I can tell you, we do have somebody on from Northridge West Neighborhood Council who was treasurer at the time for the 2019 elections. They did a postcard mailing, saturation mailer to every address within their neighborhood council to recruit voters. And then they did a second postcard prior to the election day to encourage people to vote. Those things are pretty pricey, and I don't know if you wanted to confirm the price, but I believe it was about $4,000 each. Yeah. But I'll stand to be corrected if that person wanted to correct me. And many neighborhood councils do that, but it's an option. It's one of the many tools you have in your toolkit. Again, I would encourage everyone to take advantage of the upcoming outreach sessions that will be led by the department. You may get some other ideas as well. And look at the recording of the outreach session that's being held today once that recording is available to you.
Thank you, Glenn.
You're welcome. And I saw another raised hands. Hold on just a second. Oh, I don't see. Okay. Is anyone else? Does anyone with a neighborhood council who has done mailings want to comment on it? Holly, I see your hand. You should be unmuted now.
I'm the treasurer of the Mar Vista Community Council, and we did budget about $10,000 for the election this year. Last year, we sent out an 8-page newsletter that was hand-delivered to, I think, 23 to 25,000 households, and that cost about $6,500. We also purchased yard signs, 50 of them, for just advertising that there's a neighborhood council election, where it was, the hours of operation. And we bought 50 signs, and that was about $750. We did something else, but I'm blanking on it. It does cost money. We looked into a mailer, and for us, that was more expensive than the newsletter. So we did a newsletter. It was just whatever was on the city clerk's website, with the candidates' statements and their photographs, and just the general information of where to vote, where to park, those kind of things.
Holly, what kind of turnout did you have?
We had the most people that have voted in any Mar Vista Community Council election. I'm thinking it was around 1,500, which isn't that big of a return. We also had an awful, more than normal amount of people running for each office. So, it might have just been the competition and everybody bringing their own voting pool out.
Right.
But a lot of people did thank us for the newsletter and said they wouldn't have even known anything was going on except that they got that.
Thank you.
Well, and that is an opportunity for your stakeholders to hear from you, if only through your traditional means, but this is a special opportunity every 2 years to do something like what Holly was describing and what some other neighborhood councils have done.
Well, we normally try to put out 2 newsletters a year, one that's just informational about the MVCC and the community organizations, the neighborhood associations, just, you know, background information on the area. And then the other is usually a roundup of what we've done and or the election. So we do spend about, you know, 10 to 12,000 a year on newsletters.
So
Part of outreach.
do you mail those to every household?
We use a delivery service that walks them to every household. We don't mail them.
Okay,
That
like
was too
a walking
expensive.
man.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was like about $100 per 1,000.
Okay. I believe walking man is one of the topics they're discussing over at the outreach committee. So you'll be able to pick that up once the recording gets posted on the Congress website. And if not, we can put you in touch with people like Holly who've used it. Okay, Ira, I see your hands raised. You should be unmuted.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what you said sort of at the beginning. The best way to get voters is to get candidates. That's been the best. We've had the largest turnouts in the last few elections. And that's the key, I think, is getting a lot of candidates who bring their own little pools of voters, and then the presidents, and we have an unusual system of voting, but then everybody takes advantage of that, because once you're there for a person, then you vote for all of the other offices because you're standing there. So that's the key, I think, really, to just say, get and focus on getting the most candidates you can, and you'll increase your voter base. That's it.
So do you want to, Ira, do you want to comment on how you got lots of candidates?
Well, it's hard. This is the new era, you know, but we would have events where we would publicize it in the local, you know, the local press, and say, all right, this is a candidate recruitment. And we put on spend a little money on refreshments and have past board members there and have everybody go along. And it was very personal. We can't really do that now. So this is a whole new thing. And, you know, one of the reasons I'm here, but then I want to get here to the outreach is how are we doing this in the new era? I mean, Zoom, we're all zoomed out, but that's the way we sort of have to do everything. Candidate recruitment, candidate forums, everything is going to have to be done by Zoom and not in person. So the thing that's annoying, not annoying, but if we're supposed to focus on the unrepresented groups, a la homeless, people that are home, etc., there's a whole education that has to be given on the use of computers. I mean, even with that, the libraries are still closed, and that's where most of the unhoused people would go to check on the computers. So even whatever outreach you're going to do, you can't reach the people, and they have nowhere to go to get and take advantage of most of this stuff. So it's a head scratcher, and I hope that DONE and Power LA, the city clerk, and everybody can come up with ways of reaching these people. How do you reach a person who's in their house who doesn't know how to use a computer? These are questions. I don't have the answers, but you know, we're going to try.
Yes, well, that's why the theme of this year's Congress is rising together through challenging times. You know, we've got like a triple triple challenges here that have come together to, especially on the elections. So I know that working together and the sessions that the department will be having during October and anything else that we do is all got, is focused on how do we do it in these new times. So we'll be all learning together on that.
Well, we're starting to focus on it, but let's get some concrete ways of doing it.
Right.
I mean, I'm not blaming anybody, believe me.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're
So,
waiting for.
right. So for this session, I don't want anyone to leave and jump over to the outreach session at this point, because you might as well just finish what you started, and you can get all 100% of the outreach session, watch that video. But I do want to take this back to city clerk and the running of the elections, and maybe ask if Michael and Renee, if you could maybe let all the neighborhood council representatives know what to expect as far as their respective election administrators. In other words, what is it that the elections administrators will be doing for each of their assigned neighborhood councils, and what can the neighborhood councils know what to ask of them for assistance, et cetera. And if you could maybe help out by explaining that to folks.
Yes. So the election administrators will be the main contact for the board to receive their election information. What we will do is we will attend the board meetings before the candidate filing period begins for DNC to give them their election deadlines and dates, to provide them with any materials that we have to release concerning candidate filing or voting, or any FAQs we may have. They'll also be available at those meetings to answer any questions that the board may have, or any concerns that they may want to bring back to the office for us to consider. If there are any issues with their bylaws in terms of how we interpret them, how we are to certify their candidates and qualify their voters, that will be something that the EAs will work with the election chair, if one is assigned, or the board, to remedy those issues before candidate filing begins or voting begins. They will disseminate information. A lot of you have probably received emails from your election administrators already introducing themselves, forwarding that election information worksheet to you. Once candidate filing do begin, the EAs will send reminder emails to let the board know when candidate filing begins, all of the different dates. And throughout that candidate filing period, we will also let the board know how many candidates have filed, if they have enough to meet, to have a quorum, and if they may be, if they may end up having to have a board affirmation because they don't have enough candidates running for their board seats. We'll release the certified candidates list, and we will also work with them through the vote by mail application process and sending out NC ballots. And then of course, through at the end of the season, we will release and send those election results, the official and the unofficials, and then just working on receiving any challenges, any emails, any complaints, anything that the NCs may want to communicate to our office. Our election administrators will be the liaison. So that'll be some of the things that they'll be doing. And of course, they're just available to answer any questions that the board may have.
And Renee, when might neighborhood council board members first expect, would they be starting the October board meetings to attend the neighborhood council board meetings?
Yes, that is correct. We will be reaching out to regions 5 and 6 neighborhood councils to request to be placed on their agenda so that we can provide election information at their board meetings in the month of October.
Okay, so in other words, maybe just for everyone, all 12 regions, the month prior to candidate filing opening, would that be fair? to
Yes.
say?
That's what we're looking at this time, yes.
Okay, so let me just say that in order for there to be a dialogue between your election administrator questions and even a conversation and recommendations, rather than just, I'm now speaking to all the neighborhood council representatives, please, agendize this as a specific agenda item. Don't group it in with elected public officials or city officials. Spell it out specifically, city clerk, neighborhood council, election section, the name of your election administrator, add in 2021 neighborhood council elections. So it's something that under the Brown Act, you can actually have a dialogue between your election administrator and your board members because it's been agendized. That's real important. Otherwise, it's a one-way, they do their comments and you can ask some questions, but having it on the agenda, allows for a more robust conversation about the issues. So I just want to put that 2 cents in. So thank you, Renee, for clarifying that. And we do have some raised hands, so start with Steve. You should be unmuted.
Thank you, Glenn. A couple of things. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this. I do see on the timeline that there's a period of time for vote by mail applications. I'm assuming that vote by mail ballots will be sent out to everybody that that's on some kind of a list, a mailing list for people living in a particular community, and that people who are what would be considered factual basis stakeholders would have to apply for a ballot. Is that correct?
Actually, anyone who wants to vote in a neighborhood council election will have to apply for a ballot. They will have to complete a vote by mail application. And that is because before we are able to release that ballot to that stakeholder, we have to prove that they have a stakeholder status in that particular neighborhood council. So we would not mail ballots to addresses within that council. Ballots will be mailed to individuals that have proved that they are stakeholders in that neighborhood council.
Very good. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
And that is, in essence, the challenge that we're going to have for this cycle is getting those, it used to be the challenge is get people to the polling place on election day, right, during that window. Now the challenge is get those voter registration forms out to the stakeholders, get them to fill them out and submit them, or go to the online portal at 60 days out, fill it out. And then once they get the ballot, I don't know how, we haven't really discussed about how do we, people may get the ballot and then not send it back. So, I mean, part of that is that's the step number 2 is you got to mark the ballot and get it back in by the deadline. So, okay, I raised hands from Lauren.
Hi, Glenn and Ms. McDade. I just want to make sure I've clarified your suggestion, Glenn, about agendizing a conversation with the election administrator. So is the process that we request the administrator for our board meeting and then wait for, say we want you to come to our October meeting or our November meeting, and then that person would respond? Because I imagine there's going to be a lot of demand for this. How do we basically, do we give them several dates? And then the agendizing part I've got so that we can actually have a discussion. But the process for getting them to appear, that I'm a little less clear about. Thank you.
Yes, so Lauren, what you would do, actually you should receive an email from our election administrator, but in the event that you do not, just email your election administrator requesting their appearance, letting them know when your board meeting is. And if that election administrator is not available, we will try to make someone available to you. And we will give priority to those NCs that will have a filing period opening that next month.
Right, so those of you who are in Region 5, which is the I call it Greater Hollywood. You may have a better way of describing it. And then Region 6, which is more central LA, including downtown, you're going to be up first. So, and then, you know, so you're the ones that should be reaching out right away for that. I believe Holly, sorry, I had put the hand down, so let me see. Did you put it back up? You did. Okay, Holly. You should
Hi.
be unmuted.
Holly Tilson from Arista Community Council. I just have a couple questions. It was mentioned once before that the city is going to work with service providers to register homeless people, and that they would be given paper applications to fill out with them with the service provider's address as an address that it could be mailed to. I mean, the MVCC, which I'm sure a lot of other neighborhood councils have, a PO box. I mean, is this a way neighborhood councils could also register people and use our PO box if they don't have an address or they don't want to use them? Use their address and get their ballot and take it to them, or somehow be able to register. I don't quite understand how the city's gonna reach out to people who don't have computers. I mean, how do you know who doesn't have a computer or who needs help unless you live right next door to them? And someone had suggested on the application just having a little box that says, I am a registered voter at the following address, as a form of identification that the city would be able to check. We just changed our bylaws because we had issues with the self-affirmation and now have, you know, you have to provide documentation, but it seems if you're already a registered voter that the city could verify that you're a resident within the footprint of any NC.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering if we can have paper applications too?
So yes, anyone can distribute paper applications to those who may need to fill out one in order to vote and receive a ballot. At this point, we are looking at service providers. That would be a location where they would make those applications available to the public, and perhaps those who do provide care of mailing services currently in their normal operations would also allow those individuals that they know to be unhoused to use their locations to receive their ballots. I think your question is that something that the neighborhood councils will be able to do? That is absolutely something that we can look into. We have only been looking at service providers at this point, so that is something I can take back to the team to see if that would be something that if we can add the neighborhood councils on as well as service providers to receive applications or turn in applications and vice versa for ballots. That's something we can definitely look into. Again, yes, it's going to require that if you have family or friends or neighbors that may not know about the elections and need and want to participate and are eligible to participate, then yes, it's going to take all of us to point them in the direction to those services where they may be able to, again, pick up a ballot, fill out an application, whatever they may need to do in order to vote. So that's something that we can definitely look at, seeing if the councils can be included as service providers as well.
And I during your regional networking session, I believe there was, as part of the follow-up, there was an opportunity to provide names of various locations, contact people who would help with that outreach effort.
Yes.
And so if your neighborhood council didn't have someone who was attending and provided that information, we certainly would want that to be sent in. Renee, do you want to, I'd say, who would they send that to?
Yes, they can send that to our office. Mike, can you put our information in the chat, our email address? So any locations that you know that provides essential services to maybe the seniors in your community, the unhoused, maybe is being used as a drop-in center, please provide us that information. And again, we will reach out to them and see if they are interested in partnering with us on some level, whether it's to just simply make the applications available, utilize their location as a care of mailing house, or even just to use as a drop box. Whatever capacity that we can partner with them, we'll certainly look into that.
And it could be a college or university as well, because they have a high percentage of homeless students, for example.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, I do want to thank Kathy for putting into chat what I fumbled on the name, the Empowering Neighborhood Voices with Digital Content. That was the one I said that had been partially done in July, and then they had to continue it because of technical difficulties. So if you go to chat, 1228, thank you, Kathy. She put in the RSVP for that. So that's coming up on Wednesday. Okay, so we have a hand raised from Gustavo, and you should be unmuted now. Go ahead.
Yep. Good evening, guys. Great meeting. Okay, I don't know if I've been in and out of the meeting, but I don't know if this was already inquired about the senior citizens. Renee, I know early in the week you were on a meeting with our neighborhood councils as well. And the question arises about how are we gonna approach, how are we gonna get to make sure we reach and take in consideration all the senior citizens living in our neighborhoods as it is. They're, first and foremost, they're very vulnerable, and they're not, a lot of them are not coming out right now. So how are we gonna take that? Is there any specific plan of actions that we had that you guys had come out? I haven't really seen any direct response to that issue as of yet.
Yeah, so again, I will defer to the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment because I know they are going to lead the charge with outreach. But what I would say is that, I echo what Tony Wilkerson said earlier during the opening ceremony. It is going to take all of us to really ensure that not only folks know about the neighborhood council elections, but that we let people know that there's an opportunity to vote and to facilitate that opportunity. And so it means that we may need to, provide information to our good friends, our neighbors, family members even. I know for myself, I have an uncle that does not have any children. And so oftentimes when he needs to get information online or to apply for different things, I assist him in that process. And so I don't think there's a one-fits-all answer to this, but just that it's going to take all of us to ensure that our families and our friends and our neighbors and the different people that we communicate with and talk with knows that there's an opportunity to vote in these elections and that they are stakeholders of these neighborhood councils, and to point them into the direction where they can go online if they are able to use a computer, or maybe they can get a friend or a family member to submit that vote by mail application for them. If there's a location that they could use to receive that ballot, if they are unhoused or experiencing homelessness. I think it's just a matter of getting the word out of all the different ways and opportunities that there are to vote in these elections. And it's gonna really, take all of us to do that.
All right, so there isn't any sort of, action plan to capture that. And the reason, like I said, the reason that I'm bringing this up, because one of our, council members, she is a senior citizen. And what we do is that we, whenever we have the virtual meetings every month, we go out there, we give her, we send, we stop by her house, give her our agenda, and she calls in, and, we've been helping her out. But the fact is that, yeah, but the fact, we call her, but the fact is that, how do we know who else is out there? How many more senior citizens we got in our neighborhood? That's what I'm referring to. It's going to be very hard for us to capture that. And that's one of the things that, like I said, this is kind of the second time we bring it up down here on our Harbor Gateway South Neighborhood Council. And till right now, there's no clear answer to how are we gonna attack that, or how are we gonna capture that situation. And like I said, as time goes by, we're kind of, losing time in a sense. So that's one of the things that I want to make sure, again, we bring it up.
Right. And I would definitely say reach out to your NEA and DONE. Again, they may be able to assist you with your specialized issue in your neighborhood council. They may be able to assist you further with that. But again, we will try to make that information available in multiple ways so that, when folks are ready to vote, they will have different options out there for them. But I totally hear and understand what you're saying, Gustavo, and that is something that we do need to try to address to ensure that, everyone is included in the voting process.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Before we go to our next raised hands, I do want to point out that the conversation about the council file that was mentioned earlier several times, actually 20-0963, Jose put the link in the chat, so you can go there and you can see the reports to date, and then that's where the reports to be filed will be filed prior to the October 8th meeting. And so with that, we'll go to Charles Lindblatt.
Hear me over there?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
In the just in the last election cycle, there were a number of challenges filed in various neighborhood council elections due to some very troubling, disturbing activity but there was not found to be a problem there. And I'm wondering, has the city clerk given any consideration to reviewing those and so that to restrict specifically some of those activities from happening again? I've asked this before, and I'm trying to get some clarity on this. Thank you.
Hello, Charles. So I'm not sure exactly the challenges that you're speaking of. Maybe we can have a conversation offline to get a little bit more of the details from you. What I will say, though, is that we have heard from multiple sources, and this is even something that was discussed during the election work group that was convened earlier in the year, that there is a need to not only make sure that challenges are considered fairly, but that they are done in a way where they're more transparent. And so because of that, what we've decided to do is to go back to an older model that we've had in previous elections, where we convene an independent grievance panel to decide election day challenges. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set out guidelines that need to be followed in terms of reviewing the documentation provided with the challenges and the weight of the consequences that should be associated with maybe those infractions. And then that's something that we will use in order to decide those election day challenges. And so we are in the process right now of developing all of the different things that will go into that group and that panel. And so maybe if this will be a good opportunity to have a conversation with you to identify your concerns, things that may have happened in the past, and what we could do in this new model to perhaps mitigate or circumvent some of that.
So I guess it probably, because I that's something I could share with, I could email to somebody or what have you, but because I'm hopefully that this this new arrangement with the grievance panels and so forth may improve it so that these oversights don't happen again. Thank
Yes.
you.
What neighborhood council are you with, Charles?
Mid-City West Community Council.
Okay.
I submitted a like a 31-page challenge back in the day, and so and there were about 8 or 9 challenges that were presented from our neighborhood council, and they were all rejected. And I have something further that I've written on that too. So
Okay.
check it out.
Okay. We can definitely follow up with you.
Great. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I believe Charles actually had experience about this back in the 2010 timeframe too, about this alternate, the previous way that challenges were dealt with. But I will say that over the years, it's very often that electioneering, in other words, campaigning within the 100 feet of a polling place or in a polling place, is a frequent matter of challenges. The misuse of the city seal and the neighborhood council logo has also been a frequent subject of challenges, just in general. And obviously, in a virtual world, vote by mail, we won't have the electioneering issue.
I recognize it won't be much of an issue this go around, one would assume, but I'm concerned about for going forward, if and when we do get back to in-person voting. There were some things that were done that were just rather deplorable, and so I would hope that they would be prevented from happening again.
Right, but there's still, again, based on things that even happened before, that were virtual, they were electronic. So there's still an area there of concern that in terms of the do's and don'ts of candidates and the city rules. I know you have a handout about illegal posting of signs out in the public space, but so hopefully the city clerk will help by making sure that the candidates and the neighborhood councils are aware of the do's and don'ts as far as what's not allowed.
You shouldn't be able to offer food in exchange for somebody's vote. I'm just saying, that was a big problem. So anyway, that's what I have to say about that. So hopefully that can be prevented in the future.
Okay. Well, I do know one neighborhood council did something even more than that prompted some action of city council as a result in terms of the stakeholder definition, but we won't go there for now. So, okay, we have Ira next. Go ahead, Ira.
Just a quick note. I just went to the Empower LA site, clicked on the election link, and it's 2019 information. So I was just say to Empower LA, let's get up some new information.
City clerk, is that city clerk site?
Oh, Empower LA site.
Okay.
And you click on election, it's all 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dates and stuff.
Yes, Ira. So we're in the process of updating our website. Once we do that, when you go to Empower LA to click on those links, that information will be updated. So we're working on updating that probably by this week.
Yeah, and so they, with the department as well, the department will make the updates as well where it's necessary regarding to elections, and also to direct everybody to the city clerk's website related to neighborhood council elections. And also there's the website redesign too that the department is planning to do for the Empower LA site. That we're also trying to get feedback from neighborhood council board members, stakeholders alike, in order to let us know what exactly should be part of that site, and making it user-friendly and easier to look up information that is necessary for neighborhood councils.
And that session is on Tuesday for those that submitted a survey and wanted to participate in that. I'm sure that the department will be welcome input. Good point. In fact, Jose, maybe once the updates are done on the Empower LA webpage and Renee for city clerk, because I know you've got a little paragraph in the monthly profile. If that's all done by October 1st or whenever that monthly profile come out next, maybe you might want to put that in there saying, hey, we've updated the website, 2021 information is now posted. That would be great. If you don't make it in time for the October monthly profile, then please make sure it's in the November profile.
Yes, and then we'll also send out an email to all the boards as well.
Okay. I do want to respond on the comments in chat about UCLA being closed. I don't know the details for that university, but I do know another university, Cal State Northridge. Even though they have virtual classes, they have hundreds and hundreds of students that have lab requirements, science labs, for example. And so there are hundreds of students on the campus. And also the reference to contacts is they are in touch. They know which students maybe need assistance. And also there are still many students who live on campus, and they may be a group that could benefit from outreach. Knowing, since they are a resident within the neighborhood council, they could benefit from knowing that they are eligible to vote as a resident within the neighborhood council. So there is activity going on the universities, but I am only familiar with Cal State Northridge. I can't speak for all of them. So okay, so Lauren, you should be unmuted.
Yeah, so just to fill folks in on UCLA, and I get this information from the Vice Chancellor's office. UCLA is closed to people who don't need to be there. And I'm speaking specifically of the academic campus. It doesn't affect the South Campus, which is the hospitals. So to be able to do outreach is unlikely, simply because unless you have a reason for being on campus, like you're one of the kids who, like foreign students who can't go home to their countries, or people who really need a place to live on campus, you're not going to be allowed anywhere near the dorms. You're not going to be allowed anywhere in a classroom, anywhere near a lab. What I would suggest, if people are trying to find out outreach about their local campuses, contact, if you can electronically, student affairs officers, or even your library. Libraries are just a great place to get more referrals, and see if there's a way that you could post a notice through their systems letting people know about the neighborhood council elections, since the employees who are also working from home on most of these campuses would also be stakeholders. Just a suggestion. But yeah, UCLA is closed to the public. I don't mean the, walking your dogs. I mean basically getting into the places where the people are going to be, and that's for a public health reason. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other topics that we have not discussed that folks want to initiate a conversation on? Okay, I think most everyone's been on the call since I made my last announcement, but do create an ad hoc election committee, get on your agenda, get your chair, co-chairs, get your members appointed, agendize for the city clerk, election administrator to attend your meeting, and then do agendize that. This can happen right away. I believe the election information worksheet, that deadline is is November 13th. So that needs to be on your October agenda or early November if you meet earlier in the month. And then do work with your other neighborhood councils within your region. Michael, Renee, do you want to do any closing comments?
I would just like to say thank you to everyone for being here and spending this time with us. I know even I've gotten a lot of good information from this. Thank you, Glenn. You're awesome as always, and we appreciate the support that you provide us here at the City Clerk's office. Again, we'll be working on updating the website. Hopefully that'll be done by next week. And also I would encourage you all to subscribe to Neighborhood Council updates. I did put it in the chat, and you can also find that link on our website. And for those of you that will be having candidate filing regions 5 and 6 beginning in November, I would highly recommend that you do place us on the agenda. And then also, if you have any translations that you may need other than Spanish, Korean, and Chinese, to also let us know that right away as well, so we can have that information, the candidate filing paper application translated in time enough for the beginning of your candidate filing. So that's any other languages other than Spanish, Korean, and Chinese. Those we will be doing automatically, okay? So again, thank you everyone. Michael, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I just wanted to add that I put the contact information, which is our general phone number, and the contact email back in the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to call or chat, and we'll probably direct you to the EA, or Renee and I can help you.
And everyone, please do save the chat. It's got a lot of good information in there that you'll probably be able to get elsewhere, but give you a good starting point. So the 3 dots on the lower right of that box where it says more, just hit that, and it says the first one, save chat. That'll save that to your desktop. Jose, do you want to say anything from the department?
Yeah, hi. Thank you everybody for joining in today's session. Also, thank you, Glenn, for moderating, and Michael, Renee, Nathan, Lene, Robertino. Thank you all for joining and being part of the session, answering all the questions and going over the elections for the neighborhood councils. Again, for neighborhood councils, if you have questions as well, do feel free to reach out to NEAs regarding outreach to get more information, assistance, or strategies, concerns, and ways for your board to consider doing outreach for the 2021 neighborhood council elections.
Okay, thanks, Jose. So I did put my email address in the chat for those of you who I periodically send out emails to all the neighborhood council board members on issues that are of interest citywide regarding, Board of Neighborhood Commissioners and sometimes the Handbook Committee. So you may have an email from me, but just in case, there's my email address. I do want to say that on behalf of the Congress Planning Committee, first of all, thank you for attending this year's first virtual Congress. Hopefully it'll be our last. Not that it wasn't successful, it's just that we really like seeing everyone in person and being able to have that personal dialogue and for you to be able to have breakfast and lunch and be out the forecourt and experiencing City Hall. But until then, I do want you to know that the Congress Planning Committee is looking at doing sort of future workshops in the next quarterly or so. We haven't gotten into the details. Obviously, elections was very timely. That's why we made sure that was incorporated as part of the main program as well as this networking session. I don't know what those workshops will be. It may be related to the outreach. If we see there's a need because of what the department, maybe to complement what the department's doing, we might do that. So do watch your emails for future workshops. It normally at a in-person Congress, there's up to 40 different workshops. Obviously, this time we had a panel of 4 topics plus the 7 networking. So we were way less than the normal 40 different topics. So our intent is to try to complement the things that we may have missed just because of the limitations that we had this year, for this session. But there are other neighborhood council entities that do cover some of the subjects that we cover. One of them in general is the LA Neighborhood Council Coalition that meets first Saturdays. Plan Check NC, which deals with planning and land use. They are the second Saturdays of the month. The Budget Advocates, which meets twice a month, and you can work through your budget reps and advocates for that. The Neighborhood Council Emergency Preparedness Alliance meets the fourth Saturday. Today would have been their normal meeting day. So for anything dealing with preparedness, emergency, disaster, etc., got a standing alliance for that. We also have the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance that has periodic workshops on a quarterly basis. Their next one is next Saturday at 3 p.m. So you can go to ncsa.la and learn about that one. And there are different liaison, neighborhood council liaisons that deal with other different subject areas, such as the homelessness liaison meeting on Wednesday evening, the purposeful aging, which is meeting at the end of October. So there's a whole variety of things that might have been a subject of a workshop during our annual Congress that are doing things throughout the year. So there's a place for many of these topics, many of the interests, many of the involvements, both by board members and stakeholders to have a role in. So with that, I want to thank all of our presenters from City Clerk, Jose, for hosting the Zoom session. Thank you, it really helped. And most importantly, to all of you representing and all that you do for serving on your neighborhood council and helping the neighborhoods and the communities, and for what you do for the city of Los Angeles. And if you know of anyone who's interested in this or any of the other networking sessions, to view them later on, they will be linked on the Neighborhood Council Congress website, nccongressla.com. So thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you not next year. We hopefully see you in the next few months at our next virtual workshop session. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Glenn. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
And don't
Thank you,
forget,
Glenn, and everybody. Yeah.
Save the chat. Dan will talk. Save the chat.
Yeah, please, because I got a lot to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.